Hey, I'm here with Adrian Sullivan.
Hello, everybody.
And we're about to start the semifinals of the Standard Open. The Invitational will resume after we finish up the Standard Open, but concurrent with the Invitational, running right behind it, behind the scenes, was the entire Standard Open. And we're here in the semifinals. We watched the quarterfinals last night, and now we're in the semifinals. On your left, Matt Landstrom with Vampires. On your right is Justin Brown, who's playing a Caw-Blade. Now, Matt Landstrom had to defeat Pennick with Caw-Blade on his way to the semifinals, so we'll see how he does here.
Now, one of the things about Black-Red Vampires, we've got an opening here. It's turn 1 Island, turn 2 Seagram Coast for Stoneforge Mystic. On the other side, we've got Pulse Tracker. Black-Red Vampires has been one of those decks that has stayed around, even though Caw-Blade has been the deck that has dominated, but we still managed to keep having Black-Red Vampires showing up at top tables, though not in the same kind of numbers that we see for Caw-Blade, certainly.
Yeah, it's interesting. It hadn't been played for a while, but then as the Caw-Blade deck started to adapt to beat other Caw-Blade decks, Vampires decks picked back up. Part of that was spurred by Craig Weska, who was a big proponent of the archetype, but they're back and forth, so let's see. Looks like Pulse Tracker gets in, drops Justin Brown to 18, and now Justin has to make a decision on his turn about what he wants to do.
Yeah, killing that Stoneforge Mystic delays the problematic equipment by more than a little while.
The batter's still going to take some time to get online. Alright, so he casts a Squadron Hawk, leaving up a Seagram Coast, goes to find some more of his buddies. And then he's just going to pass the turn after that, I imagine. Yep, passes the turn back to Matt Landstrom. Matt draws, untaps the Pulse Tracker.
Looks like I see a... he cracks his land here. Fetching up a swamp. I think I see a Bloodghast, and there was at least, I think, 2 red spells in his deck, or in his hand. Maybe I'm missing that.
Bloodghast at the front. Yep,
yeah, there's the Ghast.
Now, that play is interesting. It can tell you some things, but it all depends on what Matt Landstrom is thinking. If he's worried about a Day of Judgment, it would be a good call to play. But normally I find Vampires players waiting to cast their Bloodghasts until the Caw-Blade player has counter magic mana up. Because if they counter the Bloodghast when they have their counter spells in their deck in game 1, it's a lot easier to, you can just bring back.
So interestingly here, Matt Landstrom throwing a Pulse Tracker in for 2 damage, and that Squadron Hawk not blocking. And now that's kind of unusual simply because the Squadron Hawk has already replaced itself, and so in many ways it's much more disposable. And that 2 life, you can get it back with the Batterskull later, but it's not as... it's just a slightly surprising not block. Now Stoneforge Mystic comes down from Justin Brown's side to retrieve another equipment.
Sort of War and Peace.
There we are.
Yeah, I'm also surprised. I would have just instantly thrown that Squadron Hawk in front of that Pulse Tracker. Although the weird thing for me is that Matt Landstrom attacked, which signals something. I'm not sure exactly what from him, because I wouldn't expect Matt to attack there, and then I wouldn't expect Justin to not block. So maybe he just threw Justin off his game. Maybe he just had a read and thought he could get in for 2 free points.
That could be. I mean, like, you can sometimes tell with certain players that they feel certain ways about their cards and are going to make plays that are not common in order to, fulfill their kind of philosophical view of what their cards are supposed to do. Untap. We, now, it looks like a go.
Wow, he just draws and instantly ships the turn, I think. Or maybe that wasn't...
Oh, okay, he was just pointing, not shipping.
Alright, I was going to be surprised.
I was like, wow.
Wow. Really doesn't want to tap that Bloodghast. Alright, so he dismember. Pays 1 mana and 4 life to dismember Stoneforge Mystic, so Mystic goes down. Squadron Hawk still standing up on Justin Brown's side of the table.
And here comes the damage Pulse Tracker plinks in for 1, and then the damage is there again. Now the Squadron Hawk is still here. Is there going to be a Condemn? Main deck condemns. Okay, the Bloodghast drops down to the bottom.
Okay, so...
And does he want to block?
Yeah, so Justin Brown condemns...
After the fact now.
Condemns Matt's Bloodghast, and then blocks his Pulse Tracker with Squadron Hawk.
If that block had been done last turn, he'd be at 3 more life. See if that ends up mattering. Second Bloodghast for Matt Landstrom. This is not the draw Vampires wants to see against Caw-Blade.
Well, I mean, double Bloodghast is pretty good.
I mean, if you look at how the game is playing out, though, he would prefer to be establishing his board more than this, with 2/2s rather than X1s.
Yeah, man, Justin just lost 2 life for no reason by not blocking that pulse tracker the turn before.
3 life.
No, 2 life.
2 life. Plus 1 is 3. Because the pulse tracker attacks.
Well, you can't prevent the first point damage when it attacks.
Fair enough. So you're right, 2 life.
Yeah.
Good point.
Let's see. So cast
There we
Foster
go.
Highborn. And that's exactly what Matt's looking for. He can serve his Bloodghast here, and if Justin blocks, which I doubt he will, and he doesn't, then Matt can just drain him for 2 with the Highborn's ability. Matt plays his 4th land.
Says go. Now we're potentially looking on the it could be a Batterskull on the table this turn. Depends if there's a land there for Justin Brown.
I don't think I see a land for Justin Brown.
I think I see a Mana Leak, the Sword and the Batterskull that we already knew about, two Squadron Hawks, and some other cards.
But no lands. And if he had a land, I'm pretty sure the Batterskull would just be slammed on the table. But as is, I'd expect to just take out more Hawks this turn. Maybe a Hawk leaving up Mana Leak mana, if that's what the kind of thing you're into, but ideally, I think he's got a Sword of Feast and Famine too. I think he also just naturally drew that sword. I mean, ideally, Justin would love to be able to, like, play land, play sword, attack, untap Batterskull. We probably shouldn't do that anyway, in case you're worried about Dismember. But okay, so he just plays Sword of Feast and Famine, passes the turn. Now he could equip that next turn and either attack and untap all of his lands to get some free mana, or he could.
Wow.
No, he just attacks with that Squadron Hawk, or he could just leave his guy back up to block, but as is, it's not doing a lot yet. So Justin Brown attacks with his Squadron Hawk, dropping Matt Landstrom to 15 life. Matt untaps with Highborn and Bloodghast on his side. Serves in for 4, dropping Justin Brown to 9.
After combat, Gatekeeper takes care of the Squadron Hawk.
Yep, Hawk goes down. Now Justin could play and equip a Squadron Hawk this turn. Oh, there's his 5th land now.
Batterskull if he wants it.
Right,
there it is.
There's Batterskull. Let's see if there's another Gatekeeper for Matt Landstrom. If Matt has another Gatekeeper...
Or a Dismember.
Sure, or a Dismember or any kind of removal spell. Might be Lights Out for Justin. But we'll see what he's got. Nothing end of turn, so it doesn't look like Dismember. See, I think is that a Bolt Matt just drew? I think so. Lightning Bolt.
Oh, that's it.
Go for the throat.
Wow.
And there's another Bloodghast, and Justin is under 10 life.
He's at 1 now.
Now resources for 8. Justin's at 1 life. Unless he's got Day of Judgment in his deck. If the guy has Day of Judgment, he might be in an okay spot.
I don't even know if I'd call it okay with 2 Bloodghasts in play.
Yeah, I mean, any land you're dead, but...
And Lightning Bolt in hand.
Yeah, I mean, he had the Mana Leak, but I guess you can't... Leaking that Bolt, you can just pay. Yeah, it doesn't do anything. So Matt Landstrom falls Justin Brown, slays Justin Brown, fells. That's what I was looking for. Fells Justin Brown, and Matt Landstrom advances 1-0 in this matchup. Red Black Vampires versus Cobblade, pretty close we found. But Matt is no stranger to the archetype, having won an open series already with it.
Yep.
And top 8 not that long ago. In the meantime, we're going to go give away 6 months of premium.
6 months?
That is more than 3 months, but less than a year, which is convenient because 3 months is the amount you can win in the quarterfinals, and a year is the amount you can win in the finals. So the way this works...
it's almost like symmetry there.
The way this works is in both the top 8s for this weekend, stay tuned, and in between each game 1 and 2, we'll ask a question. You put in the hashtag SCG Premium on Twitter, answer our question, and out of all the people who answer correctly, we'll choose one person and win 6 months of free premium, which is quite awesome. Premium is great. You can read all the greatest articles by people like Patrick Chapin, people like Jerry Thompson, AJ Soccer is on premium now. Just a lot of people who are in this room playing the Invitational. All kinds of great stuff going on. Anyway, so one of our biggest questions this weekend is, what decks can overthrow Cobblade?
Good question.
Now, we've been talking about a couple decks in particular, most notably 2 decks.
Yep.
For the question for 6 months of free premium, answer with one of the 2 decks we were talking about yesterday that we think is well positioned in this format against Cobblade.
Gee, that's kind of vague. Maybe you should make the question a little bit more specific.
Okay. How about a combo deck?
Yes.
That's good against Cobblade.
Okay, yeah. What combo deck has been claimed to be a good matchup against Cobblade?
Championed by a lot of notable Star City writers.
Right. So make sure you tweet that to hashtag SCG Premium, and that question will be tweeted here very shortly.
Yep, and you can put it at SCG Live if you want, but just make sure you have the hashtag in there. That's the most important part. Hashtag SCG Premium. You could win 6 months of free premium. And in the meantime, we're heading into Game 2.
Right now, Matt Landstrom and Justin Brown, one of the things that is really important for the Vampires matchup is that Vampires in a vacuum against, let's say, a generic Cobblade player, it might be, you know, very close to a coin flip, but it really depends for the Vampire deck on what the Cobblade player wants to do. Is the Cobblade player a Condemn player? Are they a Condemn and Oust player? You know, do they not run hardly anything in the way of, you know, dedicated cards for creatures? The ways that the Cobblade player situates itself is basically how the Vampire matchup will look. And for a deck like Matt Landstrom is playing, he knows that he's going to be playing against Cobblade, so he's definitely set up in a way that is going to try to maximize his chances there, whereas a Cobblade player might not expect to play against Vampires, even over the course of 10 or 12 rounds of play.
Yeah, but Matt's taking that to good advantage, considering he's just been playing Vampires almost non-stop, learning how to play the deck in and out, and it's shown for him. He's, like I said, 1-1 Open Series, top 8 at another, put up a lot of good results with his Vampires deck. Let's see.
In the background, we can see Star City Game Zone's Lauren Lee giving you some print coverage of this, which you'll be able to read later on the print side of our coverage here for the Star City Games Open Series here in Indianapolis. For those of you who are just joining us, this is the semifinals here in Indianapolis. In a few hours, we'll be starting the invitational coverage, and we'll be going with the top 64. But right now, we're in the top 4 of the standard portion. I'm Adrian Sullivan, and I'm here with Gavin Verhey.
And after Game 2, or after Game 1, how do you think this matchup changes?
Well, one of the things that happens for Justin Brown is going to suddenly have access to a lot more ways to handle creatures. He could have access to 3 to 4 Condemns, potentially, if he does not already have the 3 Condemns. But he might go up to 4. He might have Journey to Nowhere. Journey to Nowhere, a card that would be particularly good against Blackrad, which, generally speaking, has no way to handle that card unless they board in Ratchet Bomb, which is not a particularly useful sideboard choice for a deck like Vampires, which wants to try to focus on removing the opponent's life total, and not so much on cards that are not doing that work. On the other side of the board, with Matt Landstrom, Landstrom's choices are actually really varied, but he's already got a setup that is quick and aggressive. He wants to keep a lot of that setup if possible, but he also has to be aware that it's possible that Justin Brown might have sideboard Gideons, a card that isn't very common in the main deck anymore, but is so effective against creature decks after the sideboard.
Yeah, I think we've seen something really interesting out of Justin Brown in Game 1 with the main deck Condemned.
Yeah.
Usually that's a sign. Now, people don't do that very much anymore, but beforehand that was a sign of sometimes an Oust Condemn split, like 2 Oust, 2 Condemn, you know, a bunch of main deck removal spells. So that almost shows me that Justin might be playing an older style list, and I wouldn't be surprised to see Gideon in there somewhere.
Yeah, I agree.
Let's see if Gideon comes out to play. I think, personally, I was never really got on board as much with cutting Gideon. I mean, I understand why it was happening, but especially now, I think the format is back to a position where Gideon's really good. People cut their Gideons for the mirror match, and then all these other decks have begun to rise, like a blue-green deck, for example. It doesn't necessarily have a really hard time with Gideon, but Gideon is certainly not a card it wants to see. Yeah,
Gideon is, I think, a card that, while it is perhaps subpar in the Caw mirror, and also probably bad against certain kinds of solitaire-style decks, like a Valakut Ram or other decks, it is incredible against decks that attack you.
Yeah. I mean, even in the mirror match, I think Gideon is awesome. Like, I played a ton of the mirror, and if I'd let my opponent resolve a Jace every time if I could resolve a Gideon next turn.
Well, I mean, that's a, you know, what's the phrase? That's one of those things, though, that if they get this and then you get your Gideon, is like that situation is one where someone like Edgar Flores, who was like a real trailblazer in cutting the Gideons, basically said, yeah, there are situations it's great, but the way that the games usually play out are such that I would prefer not to have them. So I cut them. I think he cut them entirely from the main deck in Los Angeles.
No, it was.
Maybe the tournament after Los Angeles.
It was in Boston.
It was. Yeah, it was the one right after that.
Yeah. But they're off the races. So Secret Coast for Justin Brown leads into a preordain. I think he sees Batter Skull and a card I'm not totally sure about.
His hand looks to be what, Jace?
I think Squadron Hawk hiding behind the Jace. There's definitely an Unhinged Plains there in the middle. I think another preordain on the left-hand side. Don't know what the last card in his hand is though. He puts one on top, one on bottom, keeping Tectonic Edge. So he keeps Tectonic Edge. Matt Landstrom, no one-drop. That's a big thing. We saw him do this a couple weeks ago in Louisville, too, where he just keeps no one-drop hand after sideboarding against Cobblade, and I really felt that was wrong. I feel like keeping the one-drop hands is a really good answer against the Cobblade deck. You want to be as fast as possible. But, wow, no two-drop for Matt Landstrom either. And certainly not what he was looking for. I understand he had to go down on cards with Mulligan, but no one-drop, no two-drop. Now Justin Brown has established a Squadron Hawk is going to start plopping more Hawks onto the table.
I mean, it could be that we'll see a unleashing of 3 or 4 gatekeepers in a row here from Matt Landstrom in the coming turns.
Let's see. And alright, surging with the Hawk. So Matt Landstrom will drop to 19 from that heck from the Hawk, and wouldn't be surprised if we see another Hawk joining, or if Justin Brown just leaves up Mana Leak mana. If Matt hasn't done anything on the first 2 turns, I mean, he doesn't have a 1 or 2 drop, so you can just leave up Mana Leak, and presumably he's going to play like a Gatekeeper or something on turn 3.
Into the Royal and Day of Judgment for Justin Brown's preordain.
Let's see, he's thinking about if he wants to keep either of them. I wouldn't be surprised if he shipped them here. I think he's just looking to make sure he can hit all of his land drops.
I mean, at this point, land is so important for Justin Brown just because his opponent hasn't done anything, and he would like to be able to continue to play out cards and still have a Mana Leak up.
Yeah, I mean, I think just hitting your land drops at this point is exactly what you want to do. I mean, he's got an island in his hand, but
both on top.
Both on top. All right. Draws Glacial Fortress. Okay, that's what that card was. And now he's got Fortress
okay. I thought that was a Day of Judgment.
Now he has Fortress Plains. He's got 2 mana untapped. He's doing Mana Leak if Matt Landstrom chooses to play anything. So here's going to be a Gatekeeper, I'd imagine.
And that's going to be countered, probably. Maybe not. I mean, it's not a particularly scary threat.
I think you just counter it because like you don't want to leave 2 mana up every turn against vampires. You want to go like double Hawk this turn, and then you're not going to be able to. Not going to be able to Mana Link anyway.
Okay, there is a Day.
Alright, so there's the Day. And so I bet Justin's going to attack for 1 here and then probably plop a double Hawk down. Let's see. Alright. Always got a Jace too. I mean, Jace seems pretty reasonable.
Jason to an empty board seems just fine.
Yeah. I would be happy with that, Jace. Now, you were saying yesterday you don't like Jace after sideboarding with Vampire.
No, not really. I mean, I think that one of the things that ends up happening is that unless they are having a terrible game, it just is often a 4-mana spell that you don't have the time to cast without it simply dying immediately.
There's Jace. I mean, I think, in my experience with Cobblade, there are definitely just a lot of situations where you really need to brainstorm against aggressive decks. You like bouncing the creature is good. Yeah, I agree. On the draw, it's especially a big problem. On the play, I've been pretty happy with Jace. So Justin Fate Seals Matt Landstrom, ships the card to the bottom after some careful thought, and Matt draws a new card. Can't quite tell what it was he drew. Looks like a spell though. Right, down comes Bloodghast.
Bloodghast seems a little late to this party.
Yeah. Not where he wanted to be. So Justin draws another land. He plays 5th land this turn, and then maybe he'll go for a double Hawk. Alright, choose the Brainstorm first. Good call. That way he can put some Hawks back, play a Hawk, and then essentially just draw those Hawks, which is insane. And he draws Celestial Colonnade too, which means he can start serving for 4 next turn with the Colonnade in the air. bringing his clock up significantly.
Now, when Brian Kibler initially made the deck Caw Go, which I think was an okay deck, but not a great deck. I mean, for a while after Squadron Hawk was printed, people talked in hushed tones about Jace, the Mind Sculptor, and Squadron Hawk as an incredible combo, but it really wasn't until Cawblade was created that we had a good deck that could make use of that combo that can be so insane.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, we saw it with Cawblade or Caw Go before, and obviously, like, people knew that combo existed, but it's only really been brought to such prominence by the Cawblade deck because the deck is so popular.
Yeah, and the Stoneforge Mystic gives it the power that Caw Go didn't have.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. I think Caw Go was like an okay deck, but I mean, Cawblade is absolutely insane. All right, so Justin Brown ships 2 Hawks back with that Jace. Plays another Hawk, getting 2 more Hawks, which is essentially just Ancestral Recall for Justin Brown. And now Justin has the full boat of Hawks around. Plays that Colonnade down. And is he passing? Yep, he passes. Chooses not to play out another Hawk. Instead, leaving up mana to Tectonic Edge or represent Mana Leak. See what he does. Bloodghast attacks it. And Justin's... Let's see. Is he just gonna? I think is that at Jace or him? Okay, it's at Jace. He just lets Jace go to 1 counter, or 3 counters rather. So it's within Bolt territory. He's like, Matt has a Bolt. Go ahead and bolt him. Alright. And Matt just does nothing. A very weak draw from Matt Landstrom, and Justin draws Stoneforge Mystic, which I think will all but close this game out.
Yeah, this game felt closed out on turn 2 from Matt Landstrom.
When you have a 2-drop. Yeah, I mean, no 1-drop. We've seen Matt do that a couple times before in the past several weeks, but no 2-drop. That means something has gone terribly awry. Let's see. Justin Brown thinking about what he's going to do. Doesn't want to accidentally make some small mistake. But I think play your 6th land. Play, or maybe you brainstorm, play your 6th land, or Fate Seal, whichever, and then you're gonna Stoneforge Mystic. Alright, he goes for the brainstorm. So that way you can put 2 cards back and then shuffle them away with Stoneforge Mystic. Using the, once again, I think the big thing about Cawblade is you can shuffle so many times too with the Mystics in addition to the Hawks.
I think that
such power.
That Jace is stronger in Cawblade than it probably is in any other deck that's common in Standard.
Oh, I agree. I agree entirely. I mean, it's good in Blue-Red Twin. Like, don't get us wrong, but I mean, just so many shuffle effects, and you'd be able to put Squadron Hawks back. It gives you plays kind of the bouncing game, so you can gain some tempo if you need to. Phenomenal power in this deck. So Justin Brown serves him for 2 with both those Hawks, dropping Matt Landstrom down to 17. Left total isn't dropping quickly yet, but it will soon. Especially with this Stoneforge Mystic, down to 15, excuse me. With this Stoneforge Mystic that's coming down for Justin Brown. And they could probably see Batterskull. I mean, makes sense. Yep, Batterskull is what Justin Brown serves up. I mean, you could get a sword there for protection or just kill him quicker with War and Peace, but there's no reason not to get the 4/4 that's almost impossible to deal with for Matt Landstrom. As a Red-Black Vampires player, beating a Batterskull is a difficult proposition.
I mean, usually your plan against Batterskull is to kill the Mystic and then stop the game from getting to the point where a Batterskull actually hits the table. And this looks well beyond the point where that's possible.
Yeah, I mean, full board Squadron Hawks, Jace protected, Stoneforge Mystic untapped for Justin Brown. It is a rough situation for Matt Landstrom. He knows his vampires well, but not well enough to get out of this bind. I mean, we'll see what happens, but like Justin looking at his hand. Maybe he'll play another Squadron Hawk. Oh, he just discards the planes. Okay. Doesn't want to open himself up to something. And you see what happened there. Justin said go to my end step, and he discarded. And then Matt tried to go for the Stoneforge Mystic, but by the time you discard, your turn is over. You can't respond to anything more. It happens after cleanup. So Alright, now there's a go for the throw, Stoneforge Mystic. So Matt can't respond within that window. Once you say, I'm ending my turn, and your opponent says, okay, go ahead and discard, you can't respond after that point until after it's your turn.
Magic players, we still have plenty of slots open and the 9 a.m. draft open. So if you'd like to draft for a shot at $500 and
Let's see.
That very mistake kept Gerard Fabiano from qualifying for the Pro Tour for a whole, like, 6 months.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, I did not know that story.
The EOT not do something because he waited for his opponent to discard, then try to do something.
That is a rough situation for Gerard.
Well, you know, he was a young man, not the grizzled veteran that he is these days.
Sure. So Bloodghast attacks Jay Sten to 1, Justin just letting it connect. It's like if you have, you know, Bird Spell, you would have used it already. And in Dismembers, they Stoneforge Mystic. He mana leaked the first time to kill the Mystic to go for the throw. And Pulse Tracker comes down for Matt Landstrom, but that 1-drop is about 6 turns too late. And Justin Brown's going to untap with everything, basically. Draw a card. Now, Matt has a lot of reactive cards in his sideboard. Pull up his deck list real fast, but if it's the same that he has, it was the same kind of thing that he was doing 2 weeks ago in Louisville. He had like Crushes, Manic Vandals, all kinds of reactive cards, and it's possible his hand is just clogged with those right now, so Batter Skull might actually not be where you want to go to. Let's see what's in his sideboard. 2 Crushes.
Yep.
Okay, so he just has 2 Crush. He cut down on the reactive cards this week.
He probably, I wouldn't be surprised if he brought in Dark Tutelage, expecting that his opponent is not going to be able to put on the kind of pressure that would make them a liability. And I would also not be surprised to see Arc Trail replacing some of the burn in his deck.
Yeah, Dark Tutelage is a card great against Cobblade because you just go up on extra cards. They're going to try and, you know, 1-for-1 you or buy time. You're just going to overwhelm them, especially if they don't have a lot of days. However, Justin has shown to have day in his deck. Let's take a look at Justin's list. Let's see. He's got 2 Condemn his main deck, so he's got a little bit of removal we saw. He's got 3 into the Royal main deck, which is a lot more than any other Cobblade deck has been playing. 2 Jace Valerian, so he's playing a much different list than a lot of people are. In his sideboard, he gets Celestial Purge, which is clearly good against Black-Red Vampires. 2 Day of Judgment, and 2 Oust. Also could have potentially brought in a Mortar Pod and Sun Titan.
I mean, that's a huge amount of potential cards to bring in this matchup.
Yep.
He seems very well situated for it.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of Cobblade players just aren't ready for the Black-Red Vampires matchup, but it seems like Justin has enough cards that it might not be an issue for him. Let's see. Justin, he brought in Sun Titan. There you go. You see one at the bottom of Justin's library there. So he plays a Mystic, and looks like Sword of War and Peace is the card he's getting. He's stopping at it. He hasn't put it in his hand. Yep, there we go. Sword of War and Peace into Justin's hand. And if he puts out a land, he can equip this turn, gain a bunch of life, deal a bunch of extra damage. Matt Landstrom has only Blackcleave Cliffs untapped, so it could be crushed. Or the creature equipped with 2 could be dismembered. You have to be careful when you're playing all these beatdown decks that you don't just board in too many reactive cards, because then you end up with game states like this where you have, you know, 3 or 4 cards in your hand, but there's like, you know, a bunch of removal spells for their Stoneforge Mystics, a Crush or 2.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly possible to have a sideboard which allows you to become a controlling deck, but if you're becoming a controlling deck, if you're going to take a lesson from, like Flores of the past, the classic article, Who's the Beatdown, you actually have to be better at controlling than your opponent is. So if you become more controlling and you're playing against a controlling deck like, you know, Cobblade can be, if you don't do their job better than they do it, then you're not going to win on that play. It's going to be a situation where you're setting yourself up for failure.
Right, you're just going to have this handful of things that are not helping you achieve victory. And then Justin Brown's thinking if he wants to go for the equip this turn, if he wants to play another Colonnade. He's not sure. He knows Matt Landstrom has Crush. And now while the game is in a really good position, alright, so he plays his 5th land as an untapped land, and he's just going to go for it. So he plays the sword, pays 2, equips the Hawk, and Matt's going to crush or dismember the Hawk when he goes to attack step. So Matt pays 4 life to do so, dropping his life total even further downward. And then 2 Hawks get in for Justin Brown, dropping Matt Landstrom to 9 life. And Matt Landstrom untaps plenty of lands, but only a Pulse Tracker and Bloodghast to his name. And Matt Landstrom does not need to see any more of this mess. He just concedes. And they're going to go into Game 3. Now, Matt Landstrom will be on the play this game. That's where he wants to be. We'll see if he has a 1-drop. Looking at Landstrom's sideboard again. Trying to think about how exactly he would have boarded.
I mean, with that sideboard, if I were Matt Landstrom, I would probably end up doing, bring in 2 Dark Tutelage, bring in 4 Arc Trail, and consider bringing in I mean, I guess the crushes are for this matchup. I'm just not sure how much I like them. I guess you bring in the 2 crushes. That's 8 cards that come in. But what are the cards that go out if you want to go that far? He's got Manic Vandals already. You know what? If he's got Manic Vandals already, I don't even know that I bring in. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if you bring those in. In the meantime, what you can do is you can go check out SCG Mobile. New app just released last week, and it's awesome. You can, if you're playing games of Magic, you can keep track of life totals, you can keep track of time and round, you can keep track of all kinds of information, you can roll dice to see who goes first. All kinds of interesting features for the play side, but also if you just want to read some articles, you can go and read all the non-premium articles on StarCityGames.com. You could favorite articles on there. I mean, sure, on your iPhone you can go and check out StarCityGames.com via the normal ways, but it's so much easier to have it in an app form. You don't have to go through the main page of the website and find the tiny little link you have to click on for each article. No, it's just all there, and you can just read it. And some of the best minds in the game write for Star City Games, and this app will just give you easier access to them. When you said, like yesterday, when you're running around the airport trying to read what's going on, it's easier to just pull up your app and click on the name you want to read instead of having to go to the front page of Star City and find exactly what you're trying to look for. And for only $5, I mean, that's pretty cheap for an app that does so much and is so useful for a burgeoning Magic player. I highly recommend it. It's Evan Earn put a lot of work into this one, and it's only going to get better as time goes on too. I mean, there's a lot of functionality already. There'll be even more functionality in the future. So make sure to check out the SCG mobile app if you have an Apple product as your cellular device. In the meantime, these guys are going to Game 3 of the semifinals. Matt Landstrom's going to be on the play. And you think that on the play he's in a pretty good spot, normally against Cobblade, but Justin Brown has a bunch of removal spells, got some condemns, has some Day of Judgments after sideboarding. So things might get a little messy for Matt Landstrom. Matt, I found after sideboarding, has a propensity to not keep hands with 1-drops sometimes, and that's come back to bite him. Last game he didn't have any early plays, and the game was just over. He needs to keep a hand with an aggressive start.
I mean, as long as he didn't go, too slow. I think that if he has, let's say, for the sake of argument, 2 Crush, 3 Manic Vandal, that might even be overkill in this matchup. Just killing a single Batterskull can often be enough to put you in a position where your opponent's already on their heels. And having that Crush in your hand in the late game when there's nothing to kill, that might be the difference between victory and defeat.
Yeah, I mean, you don't want to have too many reactive cards, and the thing is, Crush and Manic Vandal do very different things. Like, Crush is way better against Batterskull because you can, get it after you put it into play. You can hit a sword when they're attacking with it. It's an instant. Manic Vandal is, 2/2 quite often, and sometimes it'll kill an artifact, sometimes it won't. But just if they're going on the sword plan, it's a little better. But having 5 of those cards up your sideboard, 5 cards that aren't particularly impressive. It's just a lot of cards to have for one thing. I don't know. I almost feel like maybe you just. I think sideboard Crush is reasonable, but I don't think the 3 main deck Manic Vandals are necessary. I'm interested to see how those have been for Matt, and interested to see how they play out in this matchup. We'll see how this goes. Looks like Matt Landstrom is taking a mulligan, or is he still shuffling for us? No, I'm pretty sure he's taking a mulligan here. And going to go down to 6 cards on the play against Justin Brown. Not a position he wants to be in after mulliganing last game, too. You need all those cards when you're fighting a robust deck with so much card advantage like Cobblade. that can, you know, just trade with some early cards, especially if you have Condemns, which Justin Brown does. See how Matt Landstrom's hand treats him this time. He's probably looking for a 1-drop followed by a 2-drop. Maybe some kind of removal spell on turn 3, a Gatekeeper potentially, maybe even Manic Vandal could be reasonable. Let's see what he finds. Maybe he hasn't taken his opening hand yet.
Sounds good.
4. Okay.
Nope.
Justin Brown just drew way earlier than Matt Landstrom did. Strange. Okay, so it looks like from Justin Brown's hand, he's got Preordained. I think that might be a Day of Judgment hiding back there, a Sword. Matt Landstrom has the turn 1 Pulse Tracker, so that's the start you want to see. Turn 1, essentially a 2-1, at least till some blockers get down.
Celestial Colonnade on Justin Brown's side.
Yep.
In with the Pulse Tracker from Matt Landstrom. And hopefully a 2-drop for Matt, if that's what, you know, his deck is going to whir the way he wants it to. Marsh Flats turns into a Swamp with the Colostria Highborn following it up.
Yep, so that's more of what Matt wants to see. He's got Colostria Highborn, which is the key card in the Vampires deck, and he's presented pseudo 4 points of power on turn 2, and that will serve to quickly start chopping out Justin's life total. Now, Justin has that Day of Judgment, but against Colostria Highborn, Day of Judgment can be a big liability. You really want to condemn something down first. And I don't think Justin has a condemn. I can't see it. Maybe he does. Let's see. He preordains on turn 2. See what he's trying to find. Land, Stoneforge Mystic. Now, if he doesn't have a removal spell, he might ship this here. I think he's got a condemn in his hand, actually. That's the card behind his Inkmoth Nexus. So, looks like he keeps both cards, draws the Sea Chrome Coast, and is going to just pass the turn. Now, if you're Matt Landstrom, maybe you don't attack with that Colostria Highborn if you fear Condemn. We'll see what he does. I think you have to attack.
I think you just run it in there. Force him to show you the Condemn. If the Condemn happens now, so be it. And it means that your Bloodghast won't be condemned later.
Yep.
Or at least one less condemned for them to hit your Bloodghast later.
And so he condemns the Highborn. And we could see Matt hesitate there for a second, thinking about, well, do I want to stand with this? I guess I have to. I need to. I think that's a Batterskull in Matt Landstrom's hand. He boarded those in. And there's another Highborn for Matt.
In dropping before round 2, please make sure to come up to the invitational stage prior to 9:55.
Stoneforge Mystic for Justin Brown. Going to go find Batterskull, I would imagine.
8:55. At that time, the parents
Batterskull in Justin Brown's hands.
And posted. So once again, invitational players, if you would like
16 to 21.
Yep, so Justin's sitting at 16, Matt at 21. Justin's just Stoneforge Mystic for a Batterskull, so he could plop that down next turn if the Stoneforge Mystic is still around, but a Bolt is going to take down that Mystic. It sure doesn't live to have that possibility occur. And then Matt's going to serve him for 4, chopping Justin down to just 12 life. And so Justin's sitting at 12. Untaps, draws an Oust. Okay, Oust will help buy him a little bit of time, maybe. If Justin can get the 5 mana, and by next turn he could play that Batterskull out. Now we don't know if Matt has a reactive card, and that's precisely the situation where he wants to have a Manic Vandal, wants to have a Crush when they have to tap 5 mana for Batterskull, and maybe that's why he has those, is he knows he can kill the Stoneforge Mystic so often. All right, so Justin Brown goes for Sword of War and Peace with Inkmoth Nexus in play, so next turn he can serve in potentially with the War Piece on it if he wants to, and he also ousts away that Highborn. So Matt picks up 3 life, but the Highborn goes away. And let's see, Matt.
Follow up with some sort of threat, Bloodghast.
Okay, now Justin's sitting at 12.
See the Lightning Bolt in his
or
hand?
10. All right, so Justin's sitting at 10 life. See, I thought I saw Flash Red from Matt's hand too, but maybe it was a Crush. If he had a Bolt there, well, I guess not. You might want to save the Bolt for Inkmoth Nexus.
Yeah.
If that's what that is. But I just saw a Flash of Red from Matt's hand, but I don't know what the card in his hand is. On the other hand, Justin Brown has got a pretty full grip. I see Tectonic Edge. He still has a Day of Judgment, I think. Batterskull, sort of War and Peace in play, Inkmoth Nexus in play. He has to decide if he wants to serve with that Nexus with the Sword of this turn. If it connects, it's a big life swing, but if it gets killed, then Justin Brown is going to drop to 6 life and is potentially within range of, within bolt range, within attacker range, especially with that Lava Claw reach, as Matt could go land, serve in for 6, drop Justin to 4, and then Justin is in a really tight spot.
Let's see what happens. Justin thinking he knows his turn is very crucial.
Down comes the 5th land.
Alright, there's land 5.
Good morning, players. As you come in, you'll notice that we are playing the top 4 of the Standard Open this morning. Stop by and see if Matthew Landstrom can stop the call menace with his vampires today. Eric Kluge is also in the house doing his card alterations. And Lindsay Burley has her 3D cards.
Batterskull, perhaps?
She's
There it is.
A raffle ticket for every $5 you spend at
He's
her
thinking
booth.
about it.
Maybe
But
not.
He knows that Matt has a
$7
crush
donation
or
for
dismember.
her products. So check out her 3D cards, Lindsay and Eric
Oh, he
Kluge,
decides
card
not to.
alternatives.
Alright,
Squadron Hawk.
We also have plenty of vendors open for you to
I kinda like the
buy
safe
and
play
sell
here.
cards.
I do as well.
I mean,
Thanks for
if
stopping
they
by this
have
morning.
the Arc Trail, it's a gigantic blowout. If Matt Arc Trails 2 Squadron Hawks, it's going to be a big problem for Justin Brown, because he's going to drop to 6 life, and then Matt could potentially follow it up with another Arc Trail on Squadron Hawks and so forth. But I like the safe play here. I think you just play 2 Hawks. Justin has a Sun Titan in his hand, so if he just draws another land, he can drop that Titan down.
So he taps, leaving an island open, showing that he has no access to condemn. That actually is a fairly, well, he has to spend the white. Never mind, I thought that there was another white source in there. My bad. Down comes the Calastria Highborn, which will turn a block on either of these creatures into 2 more life loss.
And I think you just shove a guy in front of both of them.
I think, yeah, you trade them both away. Because that way you're only, oh, is he just taking it?
No way.
Okay.
So he blocks the Pulse Tracker.
Yeah, I think you block both of those.
Yeah, I like blocking both there. I mean, because you force him to spend a land to rebuy a Bloodghast, and I mean, you just want to eliminate his board presence, I feel.
And Matt does not use that mana to get another drain on him. Leaves the mana open for access to Crush, perhaps Dismember, perhaps Lightning Bolt.
Yeah, see, that tells me also he just doesn't have another land in his hand.
6 mana, that's going to be a Sun Titan if he wants it.
Or at least, I think making Matt play that land there is a really, really big deal by blocking that Bloodghast. So Matt plays Sun Titan, gets back Stoneforge Mystic.
This looks really, really rough for Matt now.
And looks like a Mortar Pod is a card he shuffled to the front. We'll see if that's what he gets. But the kind of unassuming Living Weapon equipment from Mirrodin Besieged made a big impact in the Cobblade decks. We'll see if he picks it up. Oh, nope, he shuffles it back in, just gets the Sword of Feast and Famine. Always a good call. So Justin Brown sitting at 7 life, Landstrom at a pretty 24, but with the Sun Titan down, Justin is starting to establish a pretty nice board presence. Matt has 3 cards in his hand. Let's see.
With the Highborn in play, Justin is still in a potentially very dangerous position.
Yeah, I mean, that Bloodghast is going to attack no matter what. Let's see.
If Matt has a Lightning Bolt in his hand, attacking with both is even reasonable.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, if he's got Lightning Bolt, he can attack with both, and the game's just over. Or not necessarily
not over.
over.
He can block
Squadron
to
Hawk.
he can block to not kill the Highborn.
Yeah,
and
not kill the Highborn. Yeah. But even then, I mean, the Highborn is still a big threat. It's gonna, probably die at some point. It's sort of War and Peace, be an issue. But all right, so Justin blocks
drain.
Blocks the Bloodghast with Squadron Hawk, and then Matt drains him for 2. We'll see if he's got a follow-up land to return that Bloodghast. So he does have a land. Plucks Bloodghast out of the graveyard. So Justin's sitting at only 5 life. What does Matt Landstrom have in his hand?
A red spell. We still can't tell what it is. His hand keeps cluttering up. I think it's a Lightning Bolt.
I think it's a Bolt. I agree. I think it's a Bolt.
I mean, I think if it's a Bolt, he should have attacked with both of those creatures then.
Yeah, I would agree with that. But he chose not to. Maybe he's hoping he can block with the Highborn and then Bolt Justin Brown to kill him. Because he's probably going to attack with the Sun Titan. So it gives him, instead of letting the Highborn get chump blocked by a Squadron Hawk, it ensures that his Highborn's going to die and drain. But I don't know how I feel about that play. I mean, because then you can just attack with Bloodghast on the next turn and it accomplishes a very similar thing.
Yeah, and his opponent is now untapped.
Yeah.
There's a Mana Leak available, which will stop a Lightning Bolt.
I mean, you definitely can't bolt right now. Yeah. Let's see what happens here.
2 mana.
Tech edging that Lava Claw Reach just seems insane for Justin Brown.
Oh
right
my
now.
god. It seems really, really good.
Although, he probably should have done the tech edge if he was going to do it.
No, well, Matt Landstrom just laid the 4th land.
Oh no, in his Justin's upkeep.
Ah.
Because it's just in his upkeep that he can equip the sword in his main phase,
The sword.
and he can't crush in response.
Sun Titan is equipping that sword there.
Okay, so he's not tech edging. I'm really surprised Justin Brown is not tech edging that Lava Claw reaches.
Block with the Highborn.
Wow. Drain
You for 2, you're at
War
3.
and Peace. So drains Justin down to 3, and Justin doesn't have the mana to tech edge that Lava Claw reaches. If he had just tech edged, Matt Landstrom was in a really precarious position. But now I think Matt can go untap Lightning Bolt you and pay 3 for Mana Leak.
Which I think is what's going to happen.
Also, did Justin forget to return a card with the Sun Titan?
No, he returned a card. Oh, the attack. He didn't return a card with the attack.
Yeah. He just didn't return a card. He's got... Alright, shows Justin Brown the Bolt. And, yeah, that's not the face of a...
The smiling people in the background.
That is not the face of a champion for Justin Brown.
Let's try this Mana Leak. Maybe it'll work.
Let's see if phase 3. That's
Yeah,
it.
he's not gonna try
Yeah,
it.
tech edging that Lava Claw Reaches was way too important. So Matt Landstrom wins 2 games to 1 over Justin Brown.